On Christmas Eve, I drove 3 hours to my daughter's house hoping for a warm family dinner. Instead, I got humiliation. When my hearing aid buzzed, my son-in-law Sutton sneered, "Turn that thing off. It's ruining dinner." I looked at my daughter Bryn, praying she'd defend me. She didn't. She laughed and said, "Dad, it's just a joke." I stayed silent, not in surrender, but in awakening. I stood up, walked to my truck, opened my laptop. One click. The next morning, the panic on their faces when they discovered the truth is something I'll never forget. Christmas Eve should be warm, right? Tell me, where are you watching from and how many degrees is it there? Leave a comment. The hearing aid in my right ear gave a soft beep as I adjusted the volume. 8 months in, and I was still getting used to it. 82 years on this earth, and my body had started failing piece by piece. First the knees, then the hearing. The doctor called it age-related hearing loss, as if the label softened the reminder that time stops for no one. I drove east on Loop 101, my 2005 Ford Humming, at 65. The December sun dipped behind the White Tank Mountains, washing the Arizona sky in orange and pink. Lenore used to love sunsets like this. Back in San Diego, she'd watch the Pacific turn gold and say, "God's showing off again." 5 years gone, and I still found myself wanting to point one out to her. The road stretched ahead, and my thoughts drifted to Maxwell Brennan. If he were here riding shotgun like he used to on our weekend trips to test sites, he'd say something about this Arizona winter. Max always claimed December in Phoenix felt like hope, warm enough to forget the world's troubles, cool enough to remember you're alive. But Max wasn't here. Not for 12 years. Structural failure at 12,000 feet. They said he wouldn't have felt anything that had happened too fast. I'd clung to that thought, though. I wasn't sure I believed it. I took the Scottsdale exit. The houses grew larger the farther north I drove from modest stucco homes to gated estates with manicured lawns. Every driveway held at least 2 luxury cars, none older than a few years. My 2-decade-old pickup stood out like a relic. Bryn's house, Sutton's, really the way he talked, sat at the end of a cul-de-sac with a view of the McDowells. $2.3 million of glass, stone, and designer landscaping. The Christmas lights didn't blink or flash. They glowed with that steady, expensive warmth you see in magazines. I parked and cut the engine. They didn't know this house was mine. They didn't know much of anything. After Lenore died, I sold our San Diego place. 5 bedrooms for one man felt obscene. The sale price stunned the realtor. I took the money, moved into a 1-bedroom in Phoenix, drove this truck, wore jeans from Target, and let my family believe I was just getting by. Max would have understood. We'd once talked about it over beers after a brutal design review. Money changes people, he'd said, shows who they really are. Sometimes it's better to keep them guessing. I picked up 2 wrapped gifts from the seat. A vintage photography book for Piper. A Polaroid camera from the 80s for Declan. Sutton would call them vintage junk. The kids would love them. 15 feet to the door. Through the window, a 12-foot Christmas tree glowed. Laughter spilled out, easy, carefree, the sound of people untouched by worry. I pressed the doorbell. Footsteps approached. The door opened. Sutton stood there, whiskey glass in hand, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. He stepped aside without a word, the gesture more dismissive than welcoming. The house smelled of roasted turkey and expensive wine, the kind Sutton loved to brag about. Probably a Chateau something from Napa. Never just wine. Always an investment. The foyer opened into a living room, straight out of Architectural Digest. Marble floors reflected the chandelier's light one that probably cost more than most cars. A 12-foot Christmas tree glittered in the corner, covered in perfectly matched ornaments. None of them the handmade kind kids bring home from school. Everything perfect. Everything cold. Grandpa. Piper appeared all warmth and energy, 23, and still the kind who ran to greet people. She threw her arms around me, and for a moment the house felt like home. "I just got back from a wedding shoot," she said, smiling, that Lenore smile. "Let me grab my camera to show you the photos." She hurried off camera bag, swinging a Sony setup worth a fortune. I'd bought it 2 years ago under Maxwell's name, disguised as an equipment grant from a non-existent foundation. She thought she'd earned it. She had just not, how she believed. "Hey, Grandpa." Declan appeared 16 and pretending not to care. I caught his small smile before Sutton's voice cut through. "Declan, help your mother in the kitchen." Not a request. The smile vanished. Bryn emerged, drying her hands. Her hug was quick, her eyes avoiding mine. "Hi, Dad. Dinner's almost ready. Make yourself comfortable." "I brought something for the kids," I said, holding up the gifts. Piper returned as I handed her the package. She tore into it glowing. Oh my God. The Americans by Robert Frank. Grandpa, this is one of the most important photography books ever. Thank you. Declan's Polaroid drew a quieter reaction, but a real one. He turned it over, meeting my eyes. This is really cool. Thanks, Grandpa. Sutton picked up the wrapping paper with 2 fingers, as if it were dirty. Vintage junk. How thoughtful, Chester. Dad Piper snapped. That book's a classic. You can't even buy first editions anymore. I'm sure. Sutton dropped the paper in the trash, motioning toward the dining room. Shall we eat? The dining table could seat 12, though there were only 5 of us. Sutton, of course, took the head patriarch by self-declaration. I sat at the far end beside Declan, distant enough to fade into background noise. Sutton poured another whiskey. Just closed a deal in Paradise Valley. $4.2 million. My firm's expanding, planning a second office in Sedona. He raised his glass toward the room. This place has appreciated 40% since I bought it. Best investment I ever made. I said nothing, just cut my turkey and listened. Then his eyes landed on me, his smile calculated. Still in that 1 bedroom in Phoenix, Chester. Must be nice, keeping things simple. Friendly words, cruel tone. Look what I have. Look what you don't. I was about to reply when my hearing aid beeped softly. Battery dying. I reached up to adjust it, but Sutton had already noticed. His smirk said it all, he'd found something new to mock. The hearing aid squealed. In the hush of that elegant dining room, it sounded like an alarm, which in a way it was. I reached up, fumbling with the tiny dial behind my ear. Sorry, I said. Battery must be low. Just give me a second. Jesus, Chester. Sutton's voice cut through the room. Can someone turn down Grandpa's radio? It's ruining Christmas dinner. He laughed, a sharp bark that waited for others to join in. No one did, but no one stopped him either. The silence was worse than mockery. It was permission. I looked at Bryn. My daughter, the little girl I'd taught to ride a bike, walked down the aisle, held when her heart broke. She stared at her plate fork, frozen midair. Say something, I thought. Please, sweetheart, say something. Her eyes flicked to mine, then away. Dad Sutton's had a stressful quarter. Don't take it personally, she murmured. You know how he jokes. My hands shook as I adjusted the weight again. The squeal stopped, but the pounding in my chest didn't. It wasn't anger, it was realization. I'd been lying to myself for years. Sutton leaned back, emboldened. You know, Chester, maybe it's time we talked about assisted living. He swirled his whiskey, his third. You're 82, right, living alone, dealing with... He gestured at my ear. Equipment failures. He sighed dramatically. Bryn shouldn't have to worry. What if you fall? What if that thing stops working and you can't hear the smoke alarm? He made cruelty sound like concern. Dad? Piper stood abruptly, her chair scraping the floor. Her voice trembled but held firm. That's not funny. That's just mean. She looked at her father with open disappointment. Grandpa's hearing aid is medical equipment. You're mocking him for getting old, for needing help? For a heartbeat, I thought Sutton might back down. But men like him don't. They double down. Piper, he said coldly. You're 23, still living here, working part-time, buried in student debt. Maybe focus on your own situation before defending. I stood up. The motion silenced him. The whole table froze. I think I should go. No anger, no shouting. Just quiet certainty. After 82 years, you learn that soft words can cut the deepest. I folded my napkin and set it beside my plate. My hands were steady now. Clarity burns the shaking away. Merry Christmas, everyone. Dad, please. Bryn stood reaching toward me. He didn't mean anything. We haven't even had dessert. Please stay. I looked at her, really looked. Saw the woman who'd learned to smooth over conflict by pretending it didn't exist. Who'd traded her father's dignity for her husband's approval, convincing herself peace was the same as right. He meant it, Bryn. My voice was gentle, and you let him. Her face crumpled. I've let this go on too long, I said quietly. Told myself Sutton's digs didn't matter, that he didn't mean it. But I was wrong, and that ends tonight. Piper's eyes brimmed with tears. Grandpa, wait. I touched her shoulder as I passed. It's okay, sweetheart. You did the right thing. That matters. Declan hadn't said a word, but his eyes found mine. He looked miserable, trapped. I nodded a promise we'd talk later when the walls couldn't listen. I walked out, didn't rush, didn't slam the door. Just left, with what dignity I had left. The door clicked shut behind me. Inside Sutton's voice, well, that was dramatic. I sat in my truck in the driveway of the house I owned and placed my hands on the steering wheel. Didn't start the engine. The laptop sat on the passenger seat where I'd left it that morning, never imagining I'd need it tonight. But I'd always known this day would come. You can feel a storm long before it breaks the stillness, the heavy air. I just hadn't known what would finally do it. Turns out it wasn't Sutton's cruelty, it was the permission. The way Bryn had sat there, the way she'd called it a joke. I knew what I had to do. I'd always known. The laptop screen glowed in the darkness. Outside, the house lights still burned my house, my windows, my $2.3 million investment in a family that had just called me a burden. I opened the file Maxwell Brennan, Family Support. The spreadsheet loaded tabs across the top like chapters in a decade-long story. Real estate holdings, educational trust, business investments, personal loans, each one a record of quiet help, scaffolding holding up lives that no longer stood on their own. At the bottom, the final line blinked beside the total. Total disbursed, $3,294,000, $3.3 million, 10 years of silent support. And tonight, he'd called me a burden. I leaned back in the worn truck seat and let memory take me 12 years back to Winston Palmer's office in downtown Phoenix. Leather chairs, mahogany desk, the weight of grief. Maxwell Brennan left, no will, Winston had said. Under Arizona law, his estate passes to you as designated beneficiary. I'd nodded, remembering that old conversation on Max's porch. If something happens to me, he'd said, use my name for something good. Help people. I told Winston if anything happens, I'll use his name to help those who wouldn't accept help from me directly. He understood. Within weeks, we'd formed M. Brennan Investment Group, a Delaware LLC, perfectly legal, completely anonymous. I'd never wanted Bryn to feel indebted. I wanted her to see a father, not a benefactor. To love me for me, not for what I gave. Turns out she didn't love me either way. Now present, the truck, the darkness, the glowing screen. I wasn't angry. Anger was messy. This was something sharper, clarity, not revenge, respect. I dialed Winston's number. Voicemail, Christmas night, but he always checked messages. Winston, it's Chester Ashford. Execute Protocol Delta. Remove Maxwell Brennan's name from all Whitmore-related assets, effective December 26th. I'll sign tomorrow. I hung up and opened my email. Years of discipline guided my hands, steady, efficient, precise. To Thornhill Academy Trust Department, subject M. Brennan Educational Trust Dissolution. Effective immediately, M. Brennan Investment Group is withdrawing all support. Direct future inquiries to Winston Palmer, attorney at law. Send. To First National Bank Mortgage Division, subject. Cosigner removal request. Whitmore Property. Same message. Send. To Frederick Osborne, Whitmore and Associates. Subject M. Brennan Capital Withdrawal. Same message. Send. To Great Lakes Student Loan. Servicing subject loan. Payment reversal. Piper Whitmore. Same message. Send. No explanations. No anger. Just clean surgical language severing every hidden thread I'd tied into their lives. Each email felt like exhaling, setting down a burden I hadn't realized I was carrying. Through the window, their lights still glowed. I could see movement, Bryn clearing plates, maybe slicing that overpriced pie from the French bakery in Scottsdale. They had no idea. No idea the floor beneath them had shifted, that the invisible hand holding them steady had just released its grip. They'd find out soon enough. I clicked send on the final email, closed the laptop, started the engine. The old Ford coughed once, then rumbled to life. I pulled out of their driveway for the last time. The drive back to Phoenix was quiet. Highway 101 stretched ahead, empty except for the occasional semi. The city lights shimmered like distant stars. Tomorrow was December 26th, Boxing Day, the day wealthy families once gave boxes of gifts to their servants. How fitting. Bryn's phone rang at 6:47 on the morning of December 26th. She fumbled for it, groggy from wine and the memory of her father walking out. Hello, her voice was rough. Mrs. Whitmore, this is Helena Grimshaw from Thornhill Academy. I apologize for the early call, but we've received notice that the Brennan Educational Trust has been dissolved, effective immediately. Bryn sat upright. Beside her, Sutton stirred. I'm sorry, what trust? The trust covering Declan's tuition. M. Brennan Investment Group. The outstanding balance is $47,000. The number hit like cold water. There must be a mistake. Who set it up? According to our records established in 2014 through Palmer Legal Services. Beneficiary contact, Chester Ashford. Her pulse quickened. That's my father. Yes, ma'am. Should we contact another family member regarding payment? I'll call you back. Bryn hung up, staring at the phone. What's wrong? Sutton reached for his own. 3 missed calls, 1 urgent email. He opened it, his face went pale. From Frederick Osborne, he said hoarsely, Monsieur Brennan Investment Group has withdrawn its $500,000 capital investment, effective immediately. Cash flow crisis imminent. Mandatory meeting Monday 9 a.m. Sutton's hands trembled. Who the hell is Monsieur Brennan? Do you know anyone named Maxwell? Brennan, before she could answer, his phone rang again, First National Bank. He answered on speaker. Mr. Whitmore, this concerns your mortgage on the Scottsdale property. The co-signer has requested removal from the deed. You'll need to refinance within 60 days or the property may face foreclosure. Co-signer, Sutton snapped. We don't have a co-signer. I bought that house. Sir, records show M. Brennan Holdings, LLC owns 40% of the property, contributing $1.8 million of the $2.3 million purchase price in 2015. The phone slipped from Sutton's hand. He stared at Bryn. Someone named Maxwell Brennan owns 40% of our house. A knock. Piper burst in, clutching her laptop, tears streaking her face. Mom! Dad! Her voice broke. My loan servicer emailed. They said my student loans weren't paid by a scholarship. Someone named Maxwell Brennan paid them. $85,000. And now they're reversing it. I owe all of it. She looked between them, desperate. Who is Maxwell Brennan? Bryn and Sutton locked eyes. Morning sunlight streamed through the curtains, too bright for the dread filling the room. The school said the trust was through Palmer Legal Services. Bryn said slowly, with Dad listed as the contact. Sutton grabbed his phone. Palmer. Winston Palmer. Isn't he your father's lawyer? Bryn's stomach turned. Dad had a friend, Maxwell Brennan. They worked together. But he died. 12 years ago, maybe more. The pieces aligned, forming a picture too sharp to look at. Both spoke at once. We need to call Chester. Bryn's fingers shook as she dialed. 1 ring, 2, 3. Then her father's calm, steady voice. You've reached Chester Ashford. I'm unable to take your call right now. Please leave a message after the tone. Beep. Bryn lowered the phone, staring blankly. Sutton paced, muttering curses, running his hands through his hair. Piper sat on the edge of the bed, sobbing quietly. He's not answering? Bryn whispered. The silence that followed was unbearable, broken only by the faint hum of the heater and the weight of understanding settling over them. Their entire world tuition mortgage investments futures had been held up by invisible hands. And in one night, those hands had let go. I called them back at 9:15. My coffee was still hot. My hands were steady. I'd made breakfast, first eggs, toast juice. Showered. Read the paper. I wanted them to understand I wasn't reacting. I was deciding. They'd had 12 hours to panic. I'd had 12 to prepare. The difference showed. Bryn answered on the first ring. Dad? Thank God. We've been trying to reach you. Everything's falling apart. The school. The bank. Sutton's firm. Piper's loans. We don't understand. I know, I said evenly. I saw the missed calls. A beat. Then Dad, who is Maxwell Brennan? Maxwell Brennan was my best friend for 30 years. We worked together at Boeing. He died in 2013, testing a new design. No family. He left everything to me. I remember him, Bryn said softly. But what does that? Before Max died, we made a promise. If anything happened to one of us, the other would use his name to help people. We cared about people who might not accept help directly. I don't understand. You wouldn't have accepted help from me, Bryn. Not after you married Sutton. So I used Max's name, fumbling. Then Sutton's voice sharp with panic. What the hell are you saying? The house you live in, the one you bragged about last night. M. Brennan Holdings, LLC, bought it in 2015 for $2.3 million. I am M. Brennan Holdings. That's impossible, he snapped. You drive an old truck live in a one-bedroom wear jeans from Target. I do, I said, and I'm worth $45 million. Silence. Let me explain what Maxwell Brennan has done for your family. I didn't rush. Each number came out clean precise. The house $2.3 million. You contributed $500,000. I paid the rest. Your law firm 2019, 3 months from bankruptcy. M. Brennan Investment Group invested $500,000 for 40% equity. It saved you. Piper's education, 4 years of high school, 4 at ASU, $180,000. Piper's loans, $85,000 paid off in full. She thought it was a scholarship. It wasn't. The camera equipment, $15,000. Declan's tuition, 2 years, $94,000. Your credit cards, Bryn, when Sutton's deals failed, $120,000 in payments. Total $3.3 million over 10 years. All through Maxwell Brennan because I wanted love, not gratitude. Bryn's voice trembled. Dad, why didn't you tell us? Because you never asked. Because you were always polite, never present. Because the only time you seemed glad to hear from me was when you needed something advice, a loan, a favor. And I gave it all, quietly, through Maxwell's name, hoping someday you'd love me for who I was not what I could give. My tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. But last night, Sutton mocked my hearing aid, the one thing keeping me connected to this world, and you said it was a joke. So I've withdrawn Maxwell Brennan from your lives, not from anger, from self-respect. Chester, wait, Sutton started. You'll adjust, I said. Declan can attend Copper Hills High. A smaller house in Tempe will be easier to manage, and Sutton, your firm can find a new investor. Try honesty this time. Dad, please, Bryn sobbed. He was drunk. He didn't mean... He meant it, I said gently. And you let him. In the house I bought. After the dinner I paid for. Living the life I built. I love you, Bryn. Always. But I won't fund disrespect. I ended the call. Outside Phoenix was waking. The city hummed with ordinary life. For the first time in a decade, I felt no weight, only quiet, steady freedom. By January 15th, the Scottsdale house was listed for sale at $2.1 million. I knew because Winston Palmer sent me the listing link without comment. The photos showed the living room where Sutton had poured his fourth whiskey, the dining table, where my hearing aid had shrieked the front door I'd walked through for the last time. I didn't click through to see the rest. Bryn started working 3 weeks after our phone call. Winston's assistant mentioned it casually during our monthly review. She'd taken a receptionist position at a dental clinic in Tempe. $18 an hour, 4 days a week. I calculated it in my head, roughly $37,000 a year before taxes. Less than what I'd been spending monthly to keep their life afloat. Sutton's law firm dissolved in early February. Whitmore and Associates Real Estate Law became a line item in the Phoenix Business Journal's Recent Closures column. Frederick Osborne retired. The other 2 partners merged with a larger firm. Sutton took a staff attorney position at a corporate real estate company, $95,000 annually, benefits included. His old salary had been $240,000 plus bonuses. By mid-February, Declan had transferred to Copper Hills High School. I didn't know this firsthand. I'd blocked Bryn's calls after the 3rd week of her leaving voicemails that oscillated between apologies and veiled accusations. But Winston's network included a PTA member whose daughter shared Declan's chemistry class. The kid was doing fine, apparently. Made the JV baseball team. Seemed relieved to be away from Thornhill's pressure cooker. Piper moved out in late February. She rented a studio apartment in downtown Phoenix for $850 a month, picked up shifts at a coffee shop near ASU, and started making payments on her student loans. $720 monthly. I knew the exact figure because Winston had negotiated the reinstatement terms with the loan servicer on her behalf at my instruction, though Piper didn't know that. She thought she'd negotiated it herself. Let her keep thinking that. The Scottsdale house sold March 2nd for $2.05 million. After paying off the mortgage and settling accounts, Bryn and Sutton walked away with roughly $180,000. They bought a 3-bedroom ranch in Tempe for $425,000, financing the difference. From a 5,000 square foot showcase with mountain views to a 1,400 square foot house near a strip mall. I did not feel victorious. I felt tired. Bryn called every Sunday in March. I let them go to voicemail. Her messages grew shorter each week. By the 4th Sunday, she simply said, "Hi, Dad. Hope you're well. Call me if you want to talk." I didn't. Winston mentioned delicately that Sutton had moved into an extended stay hotel near his office. Temporary arrangement, he said, according to my sources. I didn't ask him to elaborate. Piper's letter arrived on a Tuesday, 3 pages handwritten on cream stationery, the kind Lenore used to buy at the little shop on 4th Avenue. The envelope had a Phoenix postmark and smelled faintly of coffee. I carried it to the kitchen table. The morning light came through the window the way it always did, bright and indifferent. I opened the envelope carefully, the way you handle something fragile. The first line read, "Grandpa, I'm sorry I didn't recognize you." I sat down at the kitchen table, and for the first time since Lenore died, I cried. 3 months after Christmas, Bryn knocked on my apartment door. I almost didn't recognize her. No makeup. Clothes from Target instead of boutiques at Scottsdale Fashion Square. She looked exactly like the daughter I'd raised before Sutton taught her to measure a person's worth by their price tag. "Hi, Dad," she said quietly. I stepped aside without a word. She came in glancing around my small one-bedroom apartment with its second-hand furniture and kitchen table that seated two. The place I'd moved to after selling the San Diego house, keeping my life small and my expenses smaller. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd read Piper's letter 4 days earlier. "How are you?" Bryn asked, and I heard the difference immediately. She wasn't making conversation. She genuinely wanted to know. "I'm well enough," I said. "And you—" "Tired." She smiled, but it was real. "I work 4 10-hour shifts at Dr. Ramos's office. My feet hurt by Thursday. I never realized how much standing receptionists do." $18 an hour, I said. She blinked. I know a lot of things, Bryn." She looked down at her hands. They were different too, no manicure, a small callus forming on her right thumb from handling files. Working hands. "I don't know how to start," she said finally. "The beginning usually works." She took a shaky breath. "I'm sorry. Not because you stopped helping us. I'm sorry because you had to do that for me to finally wake up." I stayed quiet. She'd come here to say something. I owed her the space to say it. "I let Sutton treat you terribly. I called his cruelty a joke when I knew it wasn't. I chose comfort over character. I chose money over you." Her voice cracked. "And the worst part is, I knew what I was doing. Every time you came over, every time he made some comment, and I stayed silent, I knew. I told myself it was easier than standing up to him." "Why didn't you?" I asked gently. "Because I was afraid." The words tumbled out. Afraid he'd leave. Afraid of losing the house, the lifestyle, the version of myself I'd built. I thought I needed all of that to be somebody. And now I know the person I was isn't somebody I want to be." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I work 40 hours a week. I buy groceries on sale. Declan takes the bus to school. And I'm happier than I've been in 15 years. I felt something shift in my chest. "Dad, I need you to understand something." She met my eyes. "I'm not here to ask for money. I'm not here to beg you to help with the mortgage or Declan's tuition or any of it. I'm here because I lost my father, and I want him back, if you'll have me." I reached across the table and took her hand. Her callous Target shopping $18 an hour hand. "I used Max's name because I wanted to know if you'd love me when you didn't know what I could give you," I said quietly. "And Bryn, you didn't. Not then." "I know." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "But I do now. I love my dad who wears hearing aids and drives a 15-year-old pickup and lives in a one-bedroom apartment. I love the man who taught me to ride a bike and read me stories and held my hand when Mom died. That's who I came here to find." I squeezed her hand. "Sutton and I are divorcing," she added after a moment. "He can't forgive you for humiliating him. I can't forgive him for humiliating you first." "I'm sorry," I said and meant it. "I'm not." I pulled an envelope from my pocket. 3 pages of cream stationery, still smelling faintly of coffee. "Piper wrote to me." Bryn read it, slowly, tears streaming. When she finished, she folded it carefully and handed it back. "She's always seen you clearly," Bryn whispered. "I should have learned from her." "You can come visit," I said. "You and the kids. Anytime. But Sutton—" "I know," she nodded. "I wouldn't bring him even if you invited him." After she left, I sat in the chair by the window and watched the Phoenix sunset paint the sky shades of rose and gold. Lenore used to say that endings aren't really endings, they're just beginnings wearing different clothes. I finally understood what she meant. The Christmas after my apartment was full. Not with designer furniture or expensive decorations, but with people. With laughter. With love that didn't come with a price tag. My small one-bedroom in Phoenix had a modest tree in the corner, decorated with ornaments Bryn and the kids made from paper and old photographs. The smell of roasted chicken filled the air. A $30 folding table stood in the center, surrounded by metal chairs borrowed from the community room. It was nothing like the Scottsdale mansion. It was everything. Piper arrived first, just after 3. 24 now, confident in a way she hadn't been a year ago. Jean sweater, camera bag over her shoulder. "Grandpa," she hugged me tight, "I have something to show you." On her phone, first place Phoenix Metro Photography Awards, documentary category. The winning series, Ordinary People, Extraordinary Moments. A bus driver helping an elderly passenger. A teacher kneeling beside a student. A nurse holding a patient's hand. And in the center, Bryn at the dental clinic, her hand on a frightened child's shoulder, smiling warmly. "That's my favorite," Piper said softly. "Mom doesn't know she's extraordinary, but I see it now." Declan came next, 17 taller than me. Voice deeper, grin wide. "Hey, Gramps, debate team made state finals." That's wonderful, I said. I'm thinking law school. He added, unloading ingredients for his famous hot chocolate. But not Dad's kind of law. Public interest. Civil rights, maybe. What changed your mind? Copper Hills. He shrugged. Kids there work for things. Thornhill taught me to compete. Copper Hills taught me why. Bryn arrived last, carrying a pie she'd baked herself. She looked healthier than I'd seen her in years, clear-eyed, steady. Hi, Dad. She kissed my cheek. Sorry I'm late. Had to stop at the store. How's work? Good. Her smile reached her eyes. Dr. Ramos promoted me to office manager. 52,000 a year. It's not what Sutton used to make, but... She looked around the small room, the table, the paper ornaments, the borrowed chairs. It's enough. More than enough. In Sutton, divorce finalized in October. No sadness, just truth. He moved to Tucson. New firm, we don't talk. I'm sorry, I said. I'm not. She squeezed my hand. Thank you, Dad, for showing me that less is enough, and enough. She paused, voice trembling. Enough is freedom. We sat close around the folding table, shoulders touching. I asked them to hold hands for grace. I'm grateful for this family, I said quietly. Not the one we were born into, but the one we chose to become. After dinner, I stood and raised my glass of apple cider. To Maxwell Brennan, I said, my best friend. Max taught me that real wealth isn't what you own, it's who values you when you have nothing left to give but yourself. They lifted their glasses. To Maxwell they echoed. I looked at my daughter, my grandchildren, and the humble meal before us. Last year I'd sat at a table worth thousands and felt worthless. Tonight I sat on a folding chair and felt richer than ever. After they left, I turned off the lights and sat quietly. Outside, Phoenix glowed with Christmas lights, tiny points of brightness against the dark. I thought of Maxwell, of Lenore, of the long road that led to this peace. I'd lost $3 million, but gained something priceless, a family that loved me for who I was. Merry Christmas, Max, I whispered. You'd be proud of how this turned out. Looking back now, I see how close I came to losing everything that mattered, while holding on to everything that didn't. Don't be like me. Don't wait until you're humiliated at your own daughter's table to realize you've been funding your own invisibility. Don't use money as a substitute for boundaries. Don't let anyone, family included, treat your dignity as negotiable. God gave me Maxwell's friendship to teach me what true wealth looks like. God gave me Lenore's wisdom to guide me through the hardest decision I ever made. And God gave me the courage to walk away from that Scottsdale mansion and toward a $30 folding table where I finally felt seen. The lesson love without respect isn't love, it's transaction. And you can't buy your way into someone's heart. They either value you for who you are or they don't. There's no middle ground. This grandpa story might sound extreme, but I promise you it's a true story. Every dollar, every heartbreak, every folding chair. These grandpa stories teach us what textbooks can't, that sometimes the greatest gift you can give your family is the chance to stand on their own. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is permission to be loved without paying for it. True story, I spent $3 million and didn't buy an ounce of genuine affection, but I lost $3 million and found a family worth more than any fortune. That's what real grandpa stories are made of, true stories of hard lessons learned. God works in mysterious ways. Sometimes his greatest blessings look like losses. If this story resonated with you, please leave a comment below. Share your own experiences. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss these real-life lessons. Your story matters too.